What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Totally Naked Podcast, where we serve straight talk, no chaser, encouraging each other to make better choices, to love God, ourselves, and each other. I am your host and your friend, Dominique Linnell. In today's chat room, we are declaring it's time to get gritty. Now, let's jump right into it. If you've been rocking with me the last two episodes, I shared with you all in the chat room about some of the healing that I had to go through with me and my biological father, and addressing some of those abandonment issues that I had in the past, and how addressing those abandonment issues in the past allowed me to be able to find the self-confidence and the self-esteem that I had lacked all those many years. Well, now that I found that healing and I have that, better self-confidence and better self-esteem, I'm starting to imagine myself doing things that I used to dream about doing when I was younger. Things that I thought that I could definitely make a career out of or a life out of, that I had put to the side because I had responsibilities, and still do have responsibilities. And sometimes it's not that easy to just pursue a dream when you have children to take care of. But now that my son is older, he's 17 years old. He just turned 17 this year. And I am at a new place in my life as far as a new level of healing. And one of the passions that has been reignited in my life is becoming a sign language interpreter. Now, sign language interpreting is not something that I just thought of one day. No. My mother is deaf. My mother and my biological father are deaf. So growing up with my mom was totally fascinating for me. I will admit, when I was young, like when I had to be in elementary school, I did not. When you're in elementary school, the kids can be cruel. I mean, kids of all age can be cruel. But I think for me, the toughest time that I had with accept that my mom was different than all the other moms. But as I continued to grow up, I began to fall in love with my mother's culture, her deaf culture. The sign language, the body language, the love and camaraderie that she had with her friends. It was just so different. Also, me having to interpret for my mother, us going out, communicating for her on her behalf. I always felt like I had a secret language with her. But those experiences with interpreting for my mother and the new experiences that I had when I met when I met my biological father, it was a new side to the deaf community that I had never seen, because my biological father can partially hear, as where my mother cannot hear at all. To know and to hear so many different stories from both sides of the spectrum of how horrible and poor some interpreter services can be, I just knew that I had a responsibility to bring something unique and fresh to the marketplace. So, in Dominique fashion, I plunged head first into doing all type of research about changing my career. And in the midst of doing all of this research, writing down everything, I ended up with a pile of notes. Literally, it overwhelmed me. So much to the point where I just stopped right there. I just stopped at the research. Well, one day, I was scrolling through socials and I came across this video of Will Smith. And in this video of Will Smith, he was doing an interview, and he said that the distinct difference between him and someone else is that he is not afraid to die on a treadmill, that he will not be outworked period. Literally, y'all, after listening to that, it quickly arrested my heart. Like, that thing messed me up because I couldn't believe that I would allow the pages and pages of research to discourage me from making a life change, like before I could even have the work begin. And I really didn't want that to be my legacy, my story. So, y'all, I seriously asked God about it. I didn't know what else to do but to just ask God about it. And when I asked him about it, I heard him tell me, it's time to get gritty. Now, grit is a concept that I learned back in undergrad, and I really did put it into play when I was working towards my degree. So I already knew exactly what God meant when he said, it's time to get gritty. Angela Duckworth, the world's leading expert on grit, defines grit as passion and sustained persistence applied toward long-term achievement with no particular concern or reward for recognition along the way. It combines your resilience, your ambition, and your self-control in pursuit of your goals. After reading that definition, it was straight confirmation that God was telling me that now that he had reignited my passions, that it was time for me to do the work and set the atmosphere for this change. So now that I am in the middle of doing that, I wanted to share a few things with you all that I am doing to help rid myself of these excuses so I could conquer this thing and get to work. And I'm hoping that these items can help you too get rid of any excuses that may be in your way so that you can get gritty and get to work. My first thing is remembering my why. Once I got this healing and I was able to get to a place of good confidence and self-esteem, God was able to reignite the passions in me. So remembering that God gave me this passion and that I can bring reliable, relatable, relational interpreting services to the marketplace is what I have to keep in my perspective, keep in my vision to let me know that no matter how overwhelming or daunting the process may be, I have to stick to it. The second thing that I am doing is putting accountability partners in place so I force myself to do it afraid. For example, I tell my best cousin about it to keep me accountable. Sharing with you all my journey here in the chat room is another step of being accountable, because once I let you guys know about what I'm doing, it kind of pushes me to say, like, you know what, put it out there, let's do it now. Your accountability partners are out there expecting for you to show up and show out. So, it puts that extra push behind me to not make any excuses to get the work done. The next thing was actually clarifying some goals. Like, I had to literally take that big pile of research and break that thing down to more bite-sized, realistic goals. So, for example, throughout that research, I know that going back to school is something that I may need to do to actually learn the basics of interpreting. So in order for me to do that, I have to figure out when enrollment begins, figure out when enrollment deadlines are, and get the documents in. Taking that big pile of overwhelming work and making it into bite-sized, realistic goals helps me, and it is helping me to not make excuses as to why I can't get it done. The next thing that I'm doing to take away the excuse is to practice. In my case, I don't have my mom or my dad or any of my deaf friends or family around me. So I am using different tools like YouTube videos, to be able to assist me in the practicing of sign language. If I do not practice, if I do not cultivate the skill, then it gives me an excuse to say, well, I'm not ready, so I'm not going to be able to move forward. Practicing takes away the excuse of saying I don't have the ability. And lastly, repeat. Do everything over from the top. Remembering my why. Remaining accountable. Putting what I'm doing into practice. Making clarified goals for myself. So my challenge for you today is think about what passions God has reignited for you. And think about how those passions can not only change your life, but change the lives of those around you. Once you've thought of that, once you can see that, once you've pictured that, I want you guys to grab hold of what Will Smith said. That he is not afraid to die on the treadmill. That he will not be outworked, period. What are you willing to die on the treadmill for? What won't you be outworked for? Well, the time has come that this episode has to come to an end. But don't worry, because the conversation definitely does not have to stop here. Please follow us on our social media, whether it be through Instagram or Facebook. Leave us a comment about what you thought of this episode, and let's continue the conversation there. Thank you so much for coming by the chat room with me. And remember, until next time, to love God, love yourself, and to love others. Bye, everyone.